you're like, oh, yeah, Kivu, skinny.
Oh, Brunei.
Yeah, I don't know why it's funny. Yeah, but the trench war thing of World War I started in Civil War. Siege of Vicksburg, I think. That's when they started trenching. They say the Civil War in America was like the first modern war. This is the Revolutionary, dude. It's just so horrible. Look at this walking.
Show you exactly how they did it. Verde is 10 volcanic islands off West Africa's coast. They gained independence from Portugal in 1975, and for the next 30 years, they barely played international football. Their population is smaller than even many mid-sized cities. They had no professional league. Players were scattered across Europe's lower divisions. They had zero chance at a World Cup. Then something shifted. In 2013, they shocked everyone by reaching the Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinals. In 2023, they did it again. Suddenly, scouts were paying attention. The Blue Sharks were on the hunt. Ranked 72nd in the world with resources in the bottom 10% of qualifying nations, they had unlimited belief. This wasn't luck. This was 50 years of grinding, waiting for one shot. In African qualifying Group D, Cape Verde drew Cameroon, 8-time World Cup veterans with 30 million people. Frickin' football royalty. The experts laughed. They said it was a cute story, but Cameroon was going through. Early results looked like a disaster. They drew 0-0 with Angola, dropping 2 points. Then Cameroon demolished them 4-1. Social media piled on, saying it was the same old Cape Verde, with great spirit but not enough quality. Then they did something Cameroon forgot how to do. They started winning. 5 straight victories, including in September at Praia Stadium. Cape Verde won, Cameroon 0. Revenge served ice cold on volcanic rock. Cameroon was in shock. Cape Verde was in control. In October, the final match day, Cape Verde hosted Eswatini. If they won and Cameroon failed to beat Angola, they were through. Everyone expected Cameroon to deliver at home. In the 49th minute, Livramento scored, and Cameroon were still level at 0-0 with Angola. In the 55th minute, Samedo made it 2-0. Cameroon was still scoreless. In the 90th minute, Stopira rocketed one in for 3-0. The final whistle blew in Cameroon's match, 0-0. Praia exploded. Streets flooded with blue and white. The president called it a second Independence Day. Cameroon, with their population of 30 million, was headed to playoffs. Cape Verde, with their population of 525,000, was heading to the World Cup. So how did they do it? The diaspora strategy. And unlike Malaysia, it seems like they've done this all by the book. Cape Verde hunted players across continents with relentless focus. Captain Roberto Lopez was discovered through a LinkedIn DM in 2019 while playing in Ireland's 3rd division. They built a network across Portugal, France, and the Netherlands. Anywhere Cape Verde heritage existed, they found talent. Homegrown hunger met European technique. Their final record was 7 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. They didn't outspend Cameroon. They outworked them, outthought them, and out-hustled them. When you have nothing to lose and everything to prove, that's when magic happens. Cape Verde proved something football keeps forgetting. Size doesn't matter. Resources don't matter. Well, sometimes they really matter, but sometimes they don't. What matters is belief, strategy, and refusing to accept what's impossible. 525,000 people just rewrote the rules. Drop your pick for the World Cup dark horse in the comments. Smash that like button if you're team underdog. And subscribe because Uzbekistan's story is just as insane, and I'm breaking it down next. The Blue Sharks are coming in 2026, and they're hungry. Give me your imagination for a moment. Picture the most intense football league in Europe. Passionate fans, historic rivalries, stadiums that shake with every goal. Turkish football lives and breathes drama. But what happens when the referees calling your favorite club's matches are also betting on them? That's not speculation anymore. Turkish Football Federation cracked wide open when investigators discovered 371
man, I thought he
out
made
of
that.
571 professional referees had active betting accounts. One referee placed 18,277 bets over 5 years. Like, how do you even have the time to do that amount of bets? You know what I mean? Right now, over 1,024 players are suspended. 8 people are under arrest. The investigation began quietly in April 2025. Prosecutors in Antalya received tips about referees placing bets on matches they were officiating. What started as a few suspicious names became a 5-year audit that exposed the depth of the corruption. By late October, the Turkish Football Federation couldn't hide it anymore. TFF President Ibrahim Hassiasmani, I'm trying my best here. Hasios Manoglu, I think that's fine, held a press conference on October 28th and called it a poison wounding the conscience of Turkish football. The numbers were staggering. Out of 571 active referees across all professional leagues, 371 had betting accounts. Of those, 152 were actively gambling. 7 in the top tier, Super League referees, were implicated. 15 assistant referees joined them. The Federation suspended 149 officials immediately, with bans ranging from 3 months to a year, probably too short. Then it got worse. Early November brought the bombshell that flipped Turkish football upside down. The TFF announced that 1,024 players had been summoned and suspended for betting violations. Stars from Galatasaray, Besiktas, and Fenerbahce got caught in the net. National team defender Aaron faces a potential career derailment. Lower league clubs lost entire rosters overnight. Some clubs can barely field 11 players. The investigation didn't stop at suspensions. By November 7th, 8 arrests had been made, including referees and a club president. This was legitimate criminal betting. If you bet on these sports, it's like robbery. It's collusion. It's manipulation of the market of betting so that you lose and they win. It's pretty insane. Fenerbahce has been screaming about referee bias for years, but that could be chalked up to any club complaining. Controversial calls in crucial matches, penalties that made no sense, yellow cards that seemed personal. Their president, Saadettin Saran, immediately demanded full transparency from the TFF. For Fenerbahce supporters, this scandal explains everything they've suspected. Were matches rigged? Did betting influence outcomes? Those questions now have to be answered in court. I don't know if we're going to get down to individual clubs being robbed in certain ways because it's too hard to tell which match was a farce and which wasn't. It's difficult to find that type of thing out. The broader implications ripple beyond Turkey's borders. FIFA and UEFA have strict rules against officials betting on their own sport. Turkish football's reputation internationally hangs in the balance. Matches could be postponed or canceled. Past titles might be in question. Foreign players and coaches will think twice before signing with Super League clubs. This Turkish scandal mirrors a global pattern. NBA players have been banned for betting recently. Cricket faces constant integrity concerns. Tennis deals with suspicious betting patterns on minor tournaments. Gambling companies sponsor leagues, broadcast scorelines for live betting, and create environments where insiders have unprecedented access to profitable information. The house always wins, and competitive integrity pays the price. I'm going to be honest with you. I have another video coming out in the near future about how gambling is ruining all sports, and it's kind of more focused on football, but I think this is too important of a topic for me to glance over, and I will probably talk about this scandal in that video, but there's a lot more at risk here with just gambling in general. Turkish football sits at a crossroads. Can the TFF root out? open when investigators discovered 371 out of 571 professional referees had active betting accounts. One referee placed 18,277 bets over 5 years. Like, how do you even have the time to do that amount of bets? You know what I mean? Right now, over 1,024 players are suspended. 8 people are under arrest. The investigation began quietly in April 2025. Prosecutors in Antalya received tips about referees placing bets on matches they were officiating. What started as a few suspicious names became a 5-year audit that exposed the depth of the corruption. By late October, the Turkish Football Federation couldn't hide it anymore. TFF President Ibrahim Hasiosmani, I'm trying my best here. Hasios Manoglu, I think that's fine, held a press conference on October 28th and called it a poison wounding the conscience of Turkish football. The numbers were staggering. Out of 571 active referees across all professional leagues, 371 had betting accounts. Of those, 152 were actively gambling. 7 in the top tier, Super League referees, were implicated. 15 assistant referees joined them. The Federation suspended 149 officials immediately, with bans ranging from 3 months to a year, probably too short. Then it got worse. Early November brought the bombshell that flipped Turkish football upside down. The TFF announced that 1,024 players had been summoned and suspended for betting violations. Stars from Galatasaray, Besiktas, and Fenerbahce got caught in the net. National team defender Aaron faces a potential career derailment. Lower league clubs lost entire rosters overnight. Some clubs can barely field 11 playing. Those questions now have to be answered in court. I don't know if we're going to get down to individual clubs being robbed in certain ways because it's too hard to tell which match was a farce and which wasn't. It's difficult to find that type of thing out. The broader implications ripple beyond Turkey's borders. FIFA and UEFA have strict rules against officials betting on their own sport. Turkish football's reputation internationally hangs in the balance. Matches could be postponed or canceled. Past titles might be in question. Foreign players and coaches will think twice before signing with Super League clubs. This Turkish scandal mirrors a global pattern. NBA players have been banned for betting recently. Cricket faces constant integrity concerns. Tennis deals with suspicious betting patterns on minor tournaments. Gambling companies sponsor leagues, broadcast scorelines for live betting, and create environments where insiders have unprecedented access to profitable information. The house always wins, and competitive integrity pays the price. I'm going to be honest with you, I have another video coming out in the near future about how gambling is ruining all sports, and it's kind of more focused on football, but I think this is too important of a topic for me to glance over, and I will probably talk about this scandal in that video, but there's a lot more at risk here with just gambling in general. Turkish football sits at a crossroads. Can the TFF root out corruption completely? Probably not. Will fans trust matches again? Absolutely not. How many more names will surface as investigators dig deeper? Probably a lot more. The 1,024 suspended players represent careers in limbo, families without income, their own fault, and clubs scrambling to survive. The 7 arrested referees face criminal charges that could mean prison time. The poison described has infected every level of the system. What comes next determines whether Turkish football recovers or collapses under the weight of its own corruption. The investigations continue. More arrests are expected, and every match played under this cloud carries the question fans shouldn't have to ask. Was it all real?
No way.
First off, let me tell you about a 6'4" feature has a shot blocked. Then on the second attempt, he puts it into the back of the net again. Then on the brink of half-time, a smooth transition would lead to Desiree Douet getting too much time and space, and he would just slot it into the corner of the goal, making it 4-1. And in the second half, PSG just continued this ruthless display of aggression. There was no remorse for the weak. As in the 49th minute, Vitinha would be seen driving through and put a ball in behind to Nuno Mendes. And he would slot the ball home, giving him a goal and an assist on the night. Stats that you don't see from that average fullback, and he is establishing himself as one of the best left backs in football. Like, sometimes I genuinely forget that Nuno Mendes and the likes of Hakimi are fullbacks because they play so high up that I just associate them with winger roles or, wide midfielders. And time again, when put on the grand stage and playing in these big Champions League games, they show the world who they really are. Now the score would be 5-1, but Leverkusen would finally they would get their lick back. Because Alex Garcia said, nah, I am leaving here with something. I need a story to tell my grandkids. It's like when your parents go to your football game and you're losing the game, bro. You have to leave there with something, man. Get a goal or put a big challenge in and take out a leg. And Garcia saw his family in the stands. If he didn't do this in the game, he was not getting breakfast tomorrow morning. Because in the 53rd minute, he would casually lace in the ball from like 25 yards out, just completely against the run of play. No celebration, no nothing. He knew his team had already failed him. He just scored a banger, didn't really care, and the game just moved on with ease. But of course, PSG would continue the ritual that they had begun. With Barcola through on goal, he would square the ball to Ousmane Dembele, who would make it 6 on the night. And it wasn't over just yet, because in the 89th minute, Vitinha would also score, making it 7. 7-2, a dramatic win, but we have not got time to talk about anything else apart from this game. We got to move on, because there was another high-scoring game on this same exact night, where Barcelona beat Olympiacos 6-1. And the man of the moment was Fermin Lopez, who got a hat-trick in this game. Within around 40 minutes, Fermin Lopez had grabbed 2 goals in this game, and he just time and time again is showing his class and abilities on a football pitch. And he's reminding me a lot of a young Cesc Fabregas at Arsenal. The way he's just leading the team, showing authority in the midfield and attacking with dynamism. But despite his goals, Olympiacos would throw a spanner in the works, stopping the wheel that was turning for Barcelona and halting their goal onslaughts. With Al-Kabi actually scoring in open play, then the referee stopping the game and actually giving a penalty when the ball had already gone into the back of the net. It made no sense whatsoever. Honestly, the referee needed to be checked out in this entire fixture, because there were numerous occasions of dodgy dealings, fraudulent activities that looked like they were in Barcelona's favour. Because I don't even know what would have happened if, Kabi scored the header, and then what if when he gave the penalty, he missed the penalty? That's so unfair, and it needs to be fixed. I don't know what was going through this referee's head. And it got even worse, because in the 57th minute, Olympiacos saw one of their players get sent off. And if you see it back, this was not a foul. This was not a foul in game speed, slow motion. It doesn't matter what vision you were seeing. 3D, you could have been on the pitch given a 4D experience, and this would have still not been a red card. But there we go. Barcelona were given a little advantage, even though they were winning already in the game. And from then, the rest of the fixture would just look like a training match, because Barcelona would just play about with it. With Barcelona then getting all the decisions at this point, Lamine Yamal getting a penalty and slotting it away, making him the youngest player to 25 Champions League appearances. And let's not talk about the penalty. Forget the penalty. But the build-up to the penalty was all Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford in this game was outstanding. And people keep telling me to talk about Rashford. I made an entire segment about Rashford when he played Newcastle in the Champions League a few weeks back. And you can go and check out that video. It's on the main channel. But people keep asking me to talk about Rashford in players locked in this season. Bro, I get that he's locked in, but he's really locked in the Champions League. He's showing up when it really matters. And there's going to be a big dilemma when Rafinha comes back fresh from injury, what Hansi Flick does in this situation, because I actually think that Rashford's played better than Lamine Yamal in this little segment of the year. And it would be Rashford that would add to the tally of goals in this game to make it 4-1. Arrowing in a strike from an angle with no movement required. He just did it just like that. It was just a pinpoint little shot. and Rashford is looking as sharp as ever. Then just a few minutes later, Fermin Lopez would complete his hat-trick with Rooney on that right-hand side, turning into a prime Ronaldinho, hitting a flip-flop Elastico style, and then putting a fluky ball into the box that Lopez would slot away. And that was not even it, because the best goal on the night was to do with, again, Marcus Rashford. With Pedri giving the ball to Rashford, he would touch the ball down like he had velvet on the top of his boots, deading the ball and just slotting the ball home, making it 6-1, and a brilliant game for Barcelona fans, but a terrible one for Olympiacos ones. Barcelona would end the game with like 72% possession and 14 shots on the night, a dominant display which was needed in a time like this going into an El Clasico on the weekend. An El Clasico that we'll definitely cover on this channel, so of course put your notifications on and stay tuned. Now we take it to El Haramico, the tale of two terrorists that play football. It is Arsenal versus Atletico Madrid, and Arsenal beat the allegations. Because in a game that was predicted to be an absolute bore fest, Arsenal came out at home and decided, let me actually play football for once. Arteta setting up his men with guile and agility and aggression, directness. Eze was having opportunities. There was many chances in that first half for Arsenal to get the first goal of the night, but they didn't. It was silence. They just couldn't finish their dinner. It was like they had an eating disorder. But then in the second half, they were introduced to Morley's because that tasty chicken was there to munch. You know what? Bun Morley's anyway. Let's talk about Pepe's. Pepe's. Yeah? I'm talking about Pepe's chicken. But this hunger that Arsenal had would eventually be satisfied, and in the 57th minute, it would be Gabriel getting Arsenal's first goal on the night. And of course, this goal would come from a set piece. So realistically, Arteta didn't beat the allegations because over 70% of Arsenal's goals this season have come from set pieces, whether it's free kicks or corners. That is an absolutely crazy stat, and it needs to be looked at because in the big games, of course, this is the skill that we all want, the ability to score from set pieces. But eventually, Arsenal's luck is going to run out. They're not going to be scoring every single week from a set piece. But that's when they're going to need the guys on the floor to take control and start creating chances, but also finishing them off. And finish them off they would do after this first goal was broken, because it seems like this is the pattern. Arsenal need that set piece goal to, break the waters. But then after that, it's just free flowing, with Lewis Skelly putting in an amazing performance and drive for this second goal, driving up the pitch before Martinelli was peeling off to the left-hand side. He would put a lovely ball into his feet, just ahead of his feet. Martinelli would run onto the ball first time and then open up your body, finish, and slot it into the far right corner of the goal, with Oblak actually getting a hand to it, and it just being a beautiful finish from Martinelli, who seems to have found his form in the league and also Champions League this season. He's picked himself up and brought him to the same level as the likes of Trossard, who was keeping him out, of the starting 11 for so many weeks. And I'm really happy looking at it as a Martinelli supporter, someone that has never really slandered him outwardly. And then after making it 2-0, we would see GgNoRaGe get a couple of goals, with a dodgy one coming in the 67th minute, which was honestly one of the ugliest goals I've ever seen in my entire life. And then the last goal being a ball whipped into the box by Rice. Gabriel would header it on, and GgNoRaGe would be there to thrust it home, to say the least. An amazing game filled with goals, but we have to talk about another game that had even more goals, with Copenhagen losing 2-4 to Borussia Dortmund. After 20 minutes in the game, you'd seen the Lemcha finish off a beautiful piece of team play, with a lot of these Borussia Dortmund players linking up, and the Lemcha being on the edge of the D and just finishing it off simply. Like, this is not an easy finish, but the Lemcha made it look simple. Then from a Larsson corner, Copenhagen would fire the ball at goal, and eventually it would, end up into the back of the net via an own goal. But this would not disrupt the flow of play for Borussia Dortmund, because Dortmund would then be gifted a penalty via a silly decision in the box. This is not the type of mistake that you should be making in this area of the pitch. And again, it would be Ben Sabayani taking it, my rival. I actually hate this guy with a passion. I don't understand. Maybe he might be a better penalty taker, but I need Guirassy to start taking these penalties. Not because, I just like Guirassy, but maybe it's because I like Guirassy. I want to see him prosper. I don't want to see Ben Sabayani in my life. let alone him taking a penalty and scoring it. You know, I'm hate watching Benzibiani because this is the same guy that sold last year. You know, was it in the semi-finals or the quarterfinals against Borussia Dortmund, where he scored an own goal when Dortmund could have actually had an amazing game and won against Barcelona, with Guirassy scoring a hat-trick in the game. Get away. He scored an own goal against Barcelona. Then in the 76th minute, Nemecha would get his second on the night, punishing a mistake by the goalkeeper. And then from Nemecha scoring, it would be Fabio Silva late on in the game at like the 87th minute. You know, a name that I hadn't heard in years. You know, last time I checked, this guy was at Wolves. What the hell? How did he even end up in Germany? And despite a 17-year-old Victor Dowson getting a goal right at the depths of the game, it would just be a consolation, and Dortmund would take the victory, with Dowson becoming the third youngest Champions League scorer in the history of the competition. Next up, we head to St. James's Park, which featured a 3-0 victory over Jose Mourinho's Benfica, the Benfica side that I actually support on weekends. And from the start, it actually looked promising. You know, Mourinho's Benfica were playing some decent moves, with Luca Bacchio actually having multiple opportunities to score. It was just not his day. You know, multiple chances where he was cutting in and whipping the ball at goal, and it
These
just
China midfielders,
wasn't
nah,
coming
bro.
off.
They ain't doing
But in a game
shit.
like this, in a scenario against
They weren't
Newcastle,
doing
in a
nothing.
Champions League phase where you need the points, one of these has to come off.
I
You
ain't seen
have to get the
Mano,
goal.
nah. I seen
Otherwise,
him
you
in
have
the
to start
corner,
passing
bro,
the ball
mainly, but that's
and
it.
get another guy to start shooting in these same positions. But
Nah,
that
Mano
didn't
wasn't
happen, and
doing nothing,
Newcastle
bro.
would eventually capitalize, with them just needing one transition where Murphy would sweep the ball into the path of Anthony Gordon, who of course put it into the back of the net, continuing his great form in this competition. Then in the 70th minute, we would see, you know, a FIFA-like goal. Something that you don't really see unless it's a video game. This was incredible. The Newcastle goalkeeper Nick Pope would receive the ball in his hands, run to the edge of his box, and launch the ball with his arm.
keeping.
This ball would go
We'll go
about,
back to the
I
old
don't know,
reliable
60
goalkeeper,
yards
bro.
into a path of a Newcastle player, that being Harvey Barnes, who would eventually, from this action, get a goal, making it 2-0. Deaded the game. This was not normal. This was some sort of kickoff glitch, you know, starting the game again. But this actually came from Benfica's opportunity. Then in the 83rd minute, we would see some brilliant link-up play by the likes of Walter Made and Gordon before the ball get played into the path of Harvey Barnes, who would finish it off. And I have to give a little round of applause. You know, Braquinho, come on, round of applause. Okay, he doesn't really applaud unless he's seeing Messi, Ronaldo, Jib play live. So unfortunately, he's not going to give Walter Made the props. But I will tell you that Walter Made is coming across as one of the better strikers this year. Like, I'm really liking the link-up play, his agility on the ball, his stature just talked about him being locked in this season, and it just continues. For Antonio Conte's men. But then we see a Napoli own goal. You know, this guy must have got paid off by some dodgy dealer. You know, on New Star Soccer, when you get the message, oh, a shady character is offering you $10 to rig the game. This guy rigged the game because he scores an own goal, and it just changes the entire momentum and everything that was going to happen. Because just 3 minutes after this goal was given away, PSV would forge a transition counter-attack, with Saibari finishing off the move after a bit of tidy combination play.
The light.
A brilliant piece of link-up play with Dennis Mann starting the move and finishing it, leading a move on the right-hand side before ending up inside the box and finishing it off too. dinking the ball through the keeper's legs. Then in the 76th minute, things just got worse for Napoli fans because we would see
Chelsea got to break
getting sent off by a dissent, meaning that he must have said something to the referee when the referee made a decision, and it was that bad. I don't know what he said to him, what he said about his mum, or his head shape, or his hairstyle, or his boots that he's wearing, or the fact that referees wear high socks even though they wear no shin pads. Don't know what he said to him, but he got a straight, he just said, nah, get off the pitch. Then just 4 minutes after that decision, again, PSV capitalized on something that happened to Napoli, with Dennis Mann cutting in and scoring an amazing goal. A strike that just hits the top corner and just rockets into the back of the net, stamping his name onto football, because I haven't heard the name Dennis Mann in ages. This guy was seemingly unknown for a lot of people. But after this game, people are going to be talking about this guy like, wait, who's that again? And despite McTominay getting a consolation just after that, PSV would continue the antics of scoring again and again, with them getting a goal in the 87th minute and then in the 89th, making it 6-2 and just deflating Napoli fans. And there was this guy that came on, I don't know what his name was, like Ryoshi or something like that. He would come on his feet and honestly be a bright spark. When they needed a little bit more energy, a little bit more life, he came on skidding up people, breaking down the play, getting involved and just creating chances, which ultimately led to, I think, a couple of the late goals. He's just last year and went toe-to-toe with some of your favourite teams. With late and great wins against the likes of Barcelona, Inter Milan defied all odds. And that wasn't just down to their manager, despite him getting all the praise, because this season they are playing, just as good, being dominant in both the Serie A and also the Champions League. However, I must say, after watching this back, this has to be one of the most wasteful 4-0 victories I have ever seen in my life. Because although Inter Milan scored 4, won the game 4-0, they could have scored like 9 or 10 goals. Denzel Dumfries would score the opener on the night, making it 1-0 in the 41st minute. And then just after missing an absolute sitter, Lautaro Martinez would score in added time of the first half, via a Denzel Dumfries cutback pass into his path. Then Inter Milan are gifted a penalty, which Çalhanoğlu stops away. Then we see some nice play from the Marcus Thuram regen, Boni, who puts it across the box to Esposito, who puts it in to the goal, making it 4-0. And these are two players that I'm really liking the look of in the moments that I've seen them play. Esposito and Boni. And I'm not talking about Jewelry Boni from One Piece. Yeah, she's heavily impacting the story right now, or what I'm reading anyway. Don't spoil me. But yeah, Inter Milan won that 4-0, and now we go into a game between Manchester City and Villarreal, which honestly was just a standard game. Nothing crazy happened. Haaland would grab his goal, Bernardo Silva would grab a goal, and Villarreal wouldn't really fret this Manchester City team. That is 12 games in a row now that Haaland has scored, by the way. 12 games. And let's also give a shout out to Savio, who not only set up the goal that Bernardo Silva put into the back of the net, but was also, quite savage on that right hand side. He was showing some skills and some tricks and flicks that we haven't seen from him in a while. This was
win by like 3 goals,
man. Of Riyad Mahrez, and it's been a disappointment since people made that claim. But it looks like Savio's got his swag back. And although me downplaying it, Villarreal did have about 11 shots in the game. There were chances where they could have scored even before Manchester City got the first goal on the night, but Villarreal were just sloppy, and this is Manchester City picking up a win against a side that are third in La Liga, a Manchester City side that are getting downplayed in all competitions this season, despite the other contenders actually slipping up themselves. Now let's head into the Wednesday games, day 2, which had again some brilliant fixtures, great clashes, and a lot of goals too. Whoa. One of the lights have just gone off on this tripod, and that is completely unreliable.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe I'm going to have to
switch seats.
Nah, let me just stay here, you know. If both lights go off, we're just gonna continue the video in darkness. I don't even care. Like, this is a second channel video anyway, you know. I'm just sorry to the editor of this video. First off, we have to talk about Frankfurt versus Liverpool, which Liverpool won 5-1, and they just showed that despite losing many games in a row, they were not going to lose 5 in a row. But at the start of this game, it looked like they were going to lose 5 in a row because they would concede the first goal on the night to Frankfurt. With an amazing bit of play by the Frankfurt players, Christiansen would get, you know, a bit of too much space and put it into the bottom corner. Then in a bit of smooth transition counter-attacking play by Liverpool, we would see Ekitike be ruthless against his ex-side, scoring a goal that would silence the doubters and again put a lot of questions in people's minds. You know, Ekitike seems to be getting left out a lot in the Liverpool starting 11, especially in the Premier League, where he's been dropped for Isak numerous times. And in this fixture, Arne Slot said, you know what? I'm going to play Isak, I'm going to play Ekitike, and I'm also going to play Wirtz and Cody Gakpo. And it worked out because he realized that you actually can get away with playing 2 strikers in football. This is not something that is mythical. You know, if you have the right strikers, you can do it. And despite Isak failing to deceive and not getting a goal in this game, there were multiple opportunities where he could have scored, but you know, he just didn't have his shooting boots on like he hasn't had them on for the entirety of the season so far. But the other players in this system were looking quite confident. With Wirtz on that right hand side, I was seeing a different style of play, and you'll see when I talk about the later goals in this game that Wirtz was involved. After this goal by Ekitike, Virgil van Dijk would come to rescue the game and score a header from a corner, commanding in the air and bringing back the momentum to these Liverpool players. And this pattern would just repeat itself, with Ibrahima Konate scoring a header as well, making it 3-1 on the night. Then in the 66th minute, we would see Wirtz flourish in this position where he would cut the ball back into Cody Gakpo, who would put it into the net. And then Dominic Szoboszlai would get a bit too much time and space near the edge of the box and just firmly slide it across the floor of the pitch, and it would go into the bottom corner. 5-1 Liverpool, and they had just reversed the fixture that looked like it was getting out of hand. But yeah, my overall thoughts for this Liverpool game is that, you know, let's just not get ahead of ourselves when doubting this Liverpool side. Once they get their act together and start playing cohesively, it's going to be a problem. We just have to wait for that moment to come. I think Arne Slot has a lot of big decisions to make in terms of the Salah situation, because Salah hasn't been playing good. You know, that is not something that we have to argue about. It's something that is just a fact at this point in time. He has not played good this season, and it's time that he gets dropped. You know, your salary doesn't define whether you play or not. In football, if you're playing badly and you're actually being detrimental to your entire team, then you need to be pulled aside and not be playing. And Wirtz is getting, you know, shifted off to the left when, in all honesty, he looked perfect on that right hand side, and I think he can do damage there when is needed. Now let's move on to Chelsea winning 5-1 against Ajax, and there's probably a lot of Chelsea fans that want me to talk about this and glaze them, but let's be real, yeah. At the start of the game, Ajax's Kenneth Taylor just decided to get a red card. You know, I don't know what was going through his head with this stupid challenge that just ruined the entire game. This was literally 15 minutes into this game. This brother puts in the worst challenge I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what he's thinking and just gets sent off. You know how annoyed I was watching this game? It was just like, no, what are you doing? And then from there, just Chelsea would just take it to these Ajax players. With Mark Gui, you know, scoring Chelsea's first on the night. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I don't even care. But he finished off an amazing chance that was kept alive by Fofana, who headed the ball across to him, and he just tapped it into the back of the net. Then in the 27th minute, you would see Moises Caicedo, you know, pop a long shot, but it would get deflected and, again, go into the goal, making it 2. Then in the 33rd minute, we would see Wout Weghorst score a penalty. Yeah, given a penalty, penalties everywhere in this game. Yeah, let me just give you a penalty. Let me give you a penalty. Do you want a penalty too? Let me just give you a penalty. Weghorst scored the penalty. You know, it wasn't the cleanest of strikes. The goalkeeper Neddy got a hand to it. Honestly, Weghorst, his whole career needs to just go in the bin at this point. Then he gets a boot in the head, and then after that, he just decides, you know what, I'm just going to clatter into the next man I see, and he gives away a penalty too. Enzo Fernandez finishes one penalty, and then Chelsea get another penalty, and Esteval scores it. I actually forgot which penalty Weghorst gave away. You know, I don't really care at this point. Chelsea just scored via penalties and deflections in this game. Even the last goal in the game that was scored by evil Saka, Tyreek George, was again a deflected shot. This game was awful. Despite the goal line, despite the scoreline being 5-1, it was a bad game. Chelsea can take a lot of positives from it because their general play was brilliant. You know, Bino Gittins had a good game, Esteval had a brilliant game. But in terms of just the cleanness of strikes, bro, don't ever watch this game back. And I actually think the most positive spell in this game that I saw was Tyreek George. You know, evil Saka has technical ability to die for. I think he's a bit lankier than Saka. He seems more agile. And honestly, I would take him at Arsenal. I would love him to just be a backup winger somewhere. Then from a win that involved many deflections to a win that was just routine. You know, at this point, it's unsurprising. Bayern Munich winning 4-1 against Club Brugge. My Club Brugge. And if you know, you've watched my recaps on the main channel, Club Brugge, the Brugge's, bro, they're like my favorite team, genuinely. And since I covered them the first time and they had an amazing game, they've just been going downhill. This was not one that was fun to watch. And just 5 minutes into this game, we would see a Bayern Munich youngster weave through a bunch of players and score. And his name is Carl. Carl. Yeah. Lenny's best friend from The Simpsons. Am I right? I never heard of this guy. 17 years old, putting his name on the map. And I'm interested. I'm interested in this 17-year-old. Then Mr. Inevitable showed up in the 14th minute with Harry Kane putting in a cutback that was played by Lima. Then Luis Diaz would grab a goal in the 34th minute, and Nicolas Jackson would put the cherry on top of the cake, making it 4-0 to Bayern Munich, and it was a standard performance from these lot. Nothing crazy. I will say that Brugge were lively before Carl's, stunner. But the early liveliness was only for 4 minutes. So then we go into arguably the worst, most boring game ever. Real Madrid versus Juventus. This was poor. This was awful. Yeah, this game was an absolute ball fest. Yeah, it was very boring. You had to have patience, and eventually it would be Vinicius Jr. Wiggling around the defense, trying to score, rebound would bounce, and then Bellingham would be there. Bellingham is. It's good to see you again, man. I've had enough of this Real Madrid team without you. They have no fight. They have no aura, and not genuinely though. They don't have no power, dynamism. They needed Bellingham back in this game, and he was there when they needed him the most. It happens time and time again. It happened a couple seasons back, and he's back from injury now. And I think that this is where this Real Madrid side is just going to pick up. But their next game is against Barcelona, so we'll have to talk about them then. The Juventus deep block was quite formidable. Both lights have gone out. I'm in the middle of the review. That's how boring this game was. It just turned off all the lights. And do I want to move the camera with the phone? No, I don't want to move the phone. We're just gonna have to firm it. Burkinio's actually scared of the dog. I don't even. Burkinio. Okay, I need to get a light. Someone send me a light. This game was actually too boring, so let's just move on. Like, honestly, there were so many games. You know what? Because of this light going off, I'm actually just going to end the video there. This is a second channel video anyway, so who's even going to watch to the end? I don't even know. The rest of the games, there was maybe one good game out of all the rest. Let me just read the notes that I have for that. It was Galatasaray winning 3-1 against Bodo Glimt, and Galatasaray as such, they were an up and down team, but coming off that game that they had against Liverpool, this is a really good path that they're about to go on. It's a good trajectory for them. And again, it was Victor Osimhen that is having an outstanding little patch in this season. And I really hope that this continues, because he's been someone that has been a formidable striker in football for, a bunch of years, since his time at Napoli and even before then. And again, he's been doubted time and time again. But in the international stage recently for Nigeria, he came up clutch. And in this game for Galatasaray in the Champions League, after having an outstanding performance against Liverpool, he's come up clutch again, and it's putting balls into the back of the net. Scooping home a finish in the 3rd minute, and then again in the 33rd minute of this game against Bodo Glimt. Then Galatasaray's Oktokoglu would score the 3rd, and then Bodo Glimt would get a consolation goal, which led to absolutely nothing for that side. Sporting would win 2-1 against Marseille, aka Prison FC, and this is a fixture that I'm just so glad that Marseille didn't win. I've had enough. I don't want to see them in this competition anymore because of all the the abusers and prisoners that they have in their side. I don't care what people say. You can comment about, the individual brilliance of some of their players. Do you think I'm ever going to cover it? No, because we just don't do that here. And Sporting actually surprised me by winning this game. And it might have been for an Emerson red card for Marseille that Santos would eventually capitalize for Sporting Lisbon, putting them up 2-1 late on in the game and winning the game for Sporting fans. Marseille did have multiple opportunities to take the game via an overturned penalty and many other things, but still, Sporting held their own and came out with the victory. Athletic Club would win 3-1 against Qarabag, and then we would have 2 ball draws in Tottenham versus Monaco, which was 0-0, and
I don't know. I thought that was something else.
and then
I
we
was
would
like,
have
what the
another
fuck? I thought it was my head.
Atalanta versus
I
Slavia
was like, what the
Prague.
fuck?
As the league stands right now, we've got the likes of PSG, Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Inter, and Real Madrid leading the pack. And just below them, we've got the likes of Manchester City, Dortmund, and Newcastle. Some sides that bounce back during this round are Chelsea, Sporting, and Galatasaray that are slowly making their way up the league phase. And sides that are in a bit of trouble that we have to look out for in the next game week are the likes of, Juventus, Villarreal, Ajax. The race for the
lost to
Golden Boot in
Brentford,
this
though.
competition is also,
Could have won
dominated
like
by
10-0.
easily
Like,
probably
not care.
the best 3 strikers
Losing
in
to
football right
Brentford
now.
was
Harry Kane,
disappointing.
Mbappe, and Erling Haaland. With Kane and Mbappe both on 5 and Erling Haaland on 4. But the likes of Marcus Rashford are surprising me with 4 as well. Anthony Gordon has 4.
Oh, they drew
Fermin
with
Lopez
Chelsea.
has 3,
Yeah,
and
fucking
Gabriel
Chelsea,
Martinelli
man.
has
Like,
3 as well. And let's not forget Nemecha, who also has 3. And after all the rounds, I think we can say the most
God, we got
dominant teams in this
Liverpool
competition so far
Brighton.
are the likes of PSG,
We got to
Bayern
forgive
Munich,
Chelsea.
and if I'm being completely honest, Arsenal. They are looking very strong, especially defensively. There is a big game week next week that we will cover properly with hopefully a better light. We will be doing it on this channel, so subscribe for this. We're going to be doing a lot more match reactions here. I need to sort the lighting on this channel, but this will be the setup, the general setup. I'm going to get a light, hopefully, and this will be less effort for me. And hopefully I can just be able to pump out videos on this channel way more often, because the first channel is great, but it does take a lot more effort, and I don't want to just pump out nonsense on the channel. So hopefully you guys appreciate this decision. If you're hating on it, then unfortunately you're going to have to get muted, because I don't care. I have to make the decisions as the general manager. I am Jose Mourinho. But yeah, there's a massive game week in a fortnight from now, which includes Liverpool versus Real Madrid. And that is a tasty game. Tasty. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This is just, I don't even know. We don't really do outros on this channel, but yeah, Burkinio says peace out, and I'll see you proper. Now, guys, it's come to my attention that Burkinio has got, my brick partner in crime, the guy that I talk to every single day on this channel, went missing, and that's why I've just been AWOL on this channel, gone ghost. I just haven't made a single video, and I don't understand. Today we're going to be tackling Liverpool, because they might actually be finished. Liverpool just lost yesterday to Crystal Palace in the League Cup 3-0. And watching the game, they got absolutely dominated, but also the naivety from Arne Slot to put out such a young team and an experienced side in this sort of game, a game where, his 11 men needed a bounce back. This is where you get your confidence up. You want to make it to the later stages. You want to win a cup. But no, he went in weak against Crystal Palace, who can be ruthless, and at times were ruthless in the game, and was punished once again. How many times has it been where Palace have come up against Liverpool and Palace have dominated them? Ismaila Sarr being a constant problem throughout the game and causing trouble for the Liverpool defence. This guy has been a running problem for Liverpool in their history. I swear, back when he was at Watford, he scored a goal against Liverpool when they were at the peak of their Premier League reign. But this result was just one on top of multiple games where this Liverpool side has failed to deceive, failing to impress the eager eyes that were going into this season. We wanted to see the likes of Vert, Isak, Ekitike all linking up, playing this dynamic football. This could have been the new Liverpool dynasty that would lead them into future generations. But so far, it's looking absolutely fraudulent. This early season optimism that we had has turned into a full-blown crisis. They have now lost 6 of their last 7 games in all competitions. This is not a joke anymore, including an unprecedented run of 4 straight defeats in the league. And I guess you could say that they bounced back in their Champions League game against Frankfurt, but no, those aren't the fixtures that you need to be winning right now. You need to get your form in tip-top shape in this Premier League because this is the most competitive league in the world. You have slipped up multiple times this season and have actually reached the same amount of losses that you had the entirety of last season, a season in which you won the entire competition. And this crisis that Liverpool have been going through started quite early on in the season. The 27th of September was their first major loss, losing to Crystal Palace 2-1, with a late stoppage time winner by Eddie Nketiah bridging the gap and getting Crystal Palace over the line to upset Liverpool fans. Then they would suffer a shock defeat to Galatasaray, losing 1-0 in the Champions League, and at the hands of Osimhen, who could have had about 3 goals in the game, but was clinical. Is that what? Unclinical? He was just not clinical enough. Then on the 4th of October, their misery would continue when they lost 2-1 to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. And not only would they lose to Chelsea, they would also lose to Manchester United, a side that the entire world has been clowning, for the last season. Just every single thing that you see online is hatred towards Manchester United, the form, their manager, the guy that's growing out his hair. Bro, they couldn't even beat this side, with the likes of Brian Mbeumo scoring and Harry Maguire scoring a late finish to win the game. Harry Maguire, you guys let this happen. Then just before this game against Crystal Palace that we started the video talking about, they would lose 3-2 to Brentford in the Premier League, their most recent result as of making this video. Their defensive frailties were on clear display, but it also didn't help that Brentford were doing prime hurrah ball, throwing the ball in at any given opportunity into the box. They were doing headers, they were doing elbows, they were doing anything to get the result. And it worked out for them because they would win the game despite Mo Salah finally scoring his first goal of the Premier League season. And at this point in the season, Liverpool are sitting at 7th in the Premier League table, 9 games in with 5 wins and 4 losses. They are 7 points behind Arsenal already. That doesn't even make sense. Like, Arsenal are good this season, they are unstoppable, but 7 points at this stage is just incredible, especially considering that Liverpool actually won against Arsenal at the start of the season. Like, going off that game alone, you would think maybe Liverpool are better than Arsenal, but no. Defensively, Arsenal are just stronger. At set pieces, they are a threat wherever they go. And again, their attack is a mismatch of different players, but slowly but surely they are finding their feet throughout the entirety of this season. But this isn't a video about Arsenal. Liverpool's form has been impacted by the likes of Alisson getting an injury against Galatasaray, an implosion in form from the likes of Ibrahim Konate, an uncertainty at fullback with the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold obviously going to Real Madrid, and Liverpool not making the sufficient enough signings to replace him in that right-back position. Similar to their left-back position in Miloš Kerkez, because realistically, that wasn't the guy that they needed. Now, looking back on it, and we can all say going into the season that Kerkez was an amazing signing, but then we have to humble ourselves and say it hasn't been the best start, and Robertson has actually come in and looked a bit more secure in the left-back role that he made his own for many seasons. Now they've kind of stripped it back. These 2 signings that they were supposed to have on either side of the flank have dropped to the bench. Conor Bradley's coming right back, and Robertson is coming in left back and just playing games. These are 2 guys that were in the squad last year. Wirtz has been brought in, but has been played in every single position in the front line. Hasn't got a consistent, spell at the right wing slot where he actually played really well in times that you've seen him there. And Salah has started off this season in absolutely dreadful form, in contract form. This is what happens when you sign a big money contract, you turn into Aubameyang. Aubameyang, after he signed the contract to Arsenal, you guys remember, he just completely went like this and fell off the face of the earth. And Van Dijk in this weakened back line has failed to marshal it because, these are not his peak years, but he's also not proved himself to be the greatest like a lot of us claim, even me. And not only is the likes of Wirtz misfiring as a big money signing, but the likes of Isak has had multiple games now where he's played the full 90 minutes, but he's just not really done anything. And now he's suffering with an injury and he's just dropped out the entire side. Ekitike has been the man up top for Liverpool, but again, Ekitike can be in form. he can be the guy that you look to. But if you don't have consistent players that he's playing with up top, he's never going to get the best out of himself because he doesn't really know the right passes to make, the right runs to do. Sometimes he's playing with Salah, other times he's playing with Wirtz, other times he's playing with Chiesa, then you got Gakpo, they're all trying to fight for the same position on the pitch. It just doesn't really work. But Ekitike seems to always find a space and a goal and a bit of link-up play. He drops in deep. He's really, really good. But again, Liverpool aren't maximising his ability by playing guys that are not going to do any running in behind. Salah is always going to pass up an opportunity to not square the ball. He's going to try and shoot himself. He's a greedy bugger. But yeah, Liverpool are in crisis. And I think Arne Slot really has to find his team's identity. You know, was last season just a fluke? Did he just have Klopp's side? Did he just inherit an amazing team that were already ready to win? Or, you know, is it an amalgamation of many things? Is it the tactics being changed? Is it players being injured? Is it, you know, the off-field things that happened to this Liverpool side, losing, you know, a key part of their team in a, you know, a very harsh manner? We will never know, but this team is built of world-class potential. Players that have proved that they can win a league and that can have a winning mentality. So we must not doubt it.
Bruno.
Just wait and find out what will happen next. There are many big games for Liverpool coming up. They have obviously a Premier League game coming up, but next week they have a game against Real Madrid in the Champions League, obviously league phase. And that is going to be a test because they need to really get a win in the Premier League and then bounce back in the Champions League against a top side where they can make them. But yeah, hopefully Coutinho will be back next video. I'll be making a lot more videos about him. Guys comment or DM me on Instagram or things like that. So make sure you stay up to date with this channel. I'm going to be posting as much as I can. Obviously all unscripted stuff. And yeah, stay safe, stay blessed, and peace. Virginio, where are you? The recaps. Now let's start off with the most recent games in our mind. Happening on Wednesday, let's take it to Club Brugge, my second favourite team in the world, and talk about their dominant display against Barcelona. Well, it wasn't really dominant, but they drew 3-3 with Barcelona, straight off the bat of Barcelona losing in El Clasico to Real Madrid. The game was packed with goals galore, but again, it was Barcelona's defensive fragility that stood out to me because time and time again, man like Carlos Forbes, the Forbes financial list, he was breaking the lines every single time, getting in behind time and time again and just abusing the Barcelona back line. Carlos Forbes being a winger that nobody seems to remember. You know, me, however, I've been watching Carlos Forbes for a while. As a Club Brugge winger, he's been at our club for a bit, moved there, I think, from Ajax. And before all of that, he was a Manchester City academy prospect, you know, coming up the ranks through Manchester City. Just imagine if they had his power and pace off the bench. Wait, they already have a million wingers, so it would be useless. And the first goal in the game would involve Forbes with him breaking in behind and putting the ball across the box to Tresoldi, who would slot it home, putting the score 1-0 up against Barcelona. But straight from kickoff, it's Fermin Lopez who clips it into Ferran Torres, who slots it away. And honestly, Ferran Torres needs a goal because time and time again when I watch him for Barcelona, he is lackluster. He does offer you things here and there, but again, after this goal that he scored in the game, there were multiple opportunities where he could have, you know, sealed the deal and grabbed big chances, but he just wastes them. Barcelona are crying out for a gunman up top, and even though Lewandowski is, I don't know, is he on the bench? Is he injured? He's going for a little spell. He's like 396 years old. You know, you actually need a proper striker, and you need to start addressing that ASAP. Club Brugge would then get one back via a counter-attack, and Balde was just left too slow. You know, you ain't reacting quick enough, bro. And Carlos Forbes is then in a dangerous position, which he clinically puts the ball into the back of the net. 2-1. Then my favourite goal on the night happened in the 61st minute with Lamine Yamal pulling out a bit of Messi-esque play. He wiggles his way around 3 defenders just like a prime GgNoRaGe would do, you know, on the streets, and gives it to Fermin Lopez. Fermin Lopez does a little flick, gives it back into the path of Lamine Yamal, and he finishes with the outside of his boot. But again, Club Brugge are quick to respond. In the 63rd minute, it's Forbes who breaks the lines once again. Another one of these transitional attacks that has seen Barcelona falter when they're needed most. Because time and time again, this Barcelona line is on the halfway line. Brugge make it 3-2, but Barcelona again stay in it with a 77th minute finish by Lamine Yamal, which was not really his goal. It just flicked in off the defender. But again, 3-3. Barcelona really and truly had zero control of the tempo, and that's what you need to have. In games like this, when you have useless amounts of possession, you need guys on a pitch that are going to dictate the tempo, slow it down, speed it up, and also be there to be on the defensive end and tell defenders where to go. Next, let's head over to Manchester, where City hosted Dortmund and beat them 4-1. This was a performance that was shrouded in dominance. Manchester City are honestly looking like a titan amongst, Premier League teams, especially in Europe. And this is another performance that is making people's eyes widen when talking about Manchester City in all competitions. The likes of Cherki and Foden are scaring me right now. And I'm going to have a whole separate video talking about just them two. But let's get on into what actually happened in the game. Because from the off, it was Manchester City domination. Whether it was possession or attacks on goal, they were all over Dortmund. Dortmund really couldn't handle this medley of Manchester City attacks. And by the 22nd minute in the game, Phil Foden had made his mark known. Are we finally seeing an informed Foden? Foden has had some underrated performances this season, but now he's shining again, and he's also scoring in a familiar position that we've seen him score in many games in the past. He would just whip the ball in like he was passing it into the bottom corner from around 23 to 24 yards out. Then in the 29th minute, it's Doku doing a little shimmy. He cuts it back, and it's Haaland scoring against his former club. By the 57th minute, Manchester City could have been 8-0 up, but it's Foden who grabs the third on the 9th. It's like whenever he enters the zone, it's on automatic command to just open up the body and whip it towards the goal. And despite Borussia Dortmund getting one back, it wouldn't be enough, because Manchester City would bring on Ryan Cherki, who would finish off Borussia Dortmund, finishing the game 4-1. And Cherki's goal was amazing. A little bit of quick feet, open up the body, slot it into the back of the net, all smiles round head. We've got Foden and Cherki on the pitch by this point, and Manchester City are dominating in every single aspect. Imagine having the medley of Doku, Savio, Foden, Cherki, Haaland, all at your disposal. Once Pep Guardiola gets all these guys in gear, gets them using haki, observational, armament, gets them all locked and loaded, leveling up their game plan, they are going to be an immovable object in not only the Premier League, but in European competitions. Next up, we head into a game between Karabakh and Chelsea, which actually ended 2-2. You wouldn't think it. You wouldn't have thought it. You wouldn't have thunk it. No way. Chelsea, bottling. If I'm being honest, it wasn't all Chelsea's fault, because there was a bunch of time wasting in this game. I actually watched this game painfully, because I think it was an early kickoff. It was just available to watch. I was like, you know what, let me just watch this. And it was painful, to say the least. It was very painful. Esteval was the knight in shining armor for me, because every time he's on the ball or involved in the play, he just excites me. I'm getting up, I'm thinking, what is he going to do next? Is he going left? Is he going right? Is he going to pass? He is next up. Honestly, he's giving me shades of Neymar. Maybe I'm taking it too far, but if he was at a different club, I'd support him way more. He would be involved in the first goal on the night in the 16th minute, chopping inside before passing it into the far corner of the goal. But then Karabakh would get one back after Duran was bulldozing the defense. The ball would fall into the path of Andrade, who would put it into the back of the net. And then in the 39th minute, Chelsea would give away a penalty via a handball. It was, quite clear and obvious. They had to actually check this. Bro, it hit his hand. It was a penalty. And Karabakh, they finished it off 2-1. And from then, they just tried to slow down the game. They were actually slowing it down from the start. It was already a slow game. The ball was hardly in play. And it didn't really work out, because Chelsea would eventually score via Garnacho. The game was dead after that, but both of these sides had opportunities to win this game, and neither of them took them. It was actually embarrassing for Chelsea, because they could not just retain the possession and actually control the game. Because a lot of people were coming with that argument of, oh, Karabakh were just time wasting. But in order to counteract time wasting, you just need to keep the ball, retain the possession, recycle the play, and then try and create opportunities when you can. How many other big sides that are performing well do that? Braquinho. Now, Braquinho just fell, unfortunately, and he has hospital bills to pay. So please like this video so we can pay for him to get his hairline fixed. Now, if I'm being totally honest, the rest of the Wednesday games that I'm going to be talking about, I didn't watch the entire game back. You know, it was very hard for me. I don't have that much time in a day. But we'll quickly go over them and then head on into the Tuesday games. Inter would pull off a 2-1 win against Kairat, which was pretty much standard. And again, they are one of these sides that has just won. And that doesn't mean one. I mean, they are winning. They are winning every single Champions League game that they have played so far. I don't know if that's actually factual, but they've been pretty good and pretty solid. Lautaro Martinez would get on the score sheet again, and Kairat would actually score a surprising goal. And they've been, you know, a side that have caused some problems here and there, but ultimately will eventually be out of this competition. Ajax would actually get thrashed 3-0 by Galatasaray, with Osimhen getting a hat-trick. Again, Osimhen, you are a problem. Yeah? Time and time again. That first goal that Osimhen scored in the 59th minute, a header, you know, he just puts his body on the line. He doesn't really care. He's playing, you know, WWE SmackDown versus Raw. He's putting his body on the line, body slamming himself into the grass, but also getting the header and putting it into the back of the net to win the game. And of course, it wasn't just that won the game for Galatasaray, because he would follow it up with 2 more goals. A penalty in the 66th minute that was given via VAR that he would slot away, and then another VAR decision via a handball in the 78th minute that Osimhen would put again into the net. And one thing that I really took away from this game is the Ajax goalkeeper. You know, whose uncle is this, bro? Put a picture of the Ajax goalkeeper on the screen and tell me that doesn't look like the uncle from Sakamoto Days. I don't know if you guys know Sakamoto Days, bro. The main character genuinely looks like the goalkeeper from this game. I was confused. Whose unk is this? Get him off the pitch. Osimhen bullied the Ajax centre-backs all night, and again, it's just one of these moments, one of these games that Osimhen says, why am I here? You know, why am I playing in Turkey? I could be playing for a genuine, you know, top 5 European League club, but I'm sitting there in Turkey just wasting my talent. Next season, I need to see Osimhen go somewhere else. Just imagine if Osimhen went to Chelsea. They would be so much more clinical. And I know I'm not, you know, on that Chelsea game anymore, but there was a moment in the game where I think it was Delap was through on goal, and like it was a perfect opportunity to just volley the ball, but he takes it down and turns around and tries to find a teammate. Bro, come on, a real bagsman, they shoot on sight. But yeah, Galatasaray win 3-0, and again, I just can't read this club. I just don't know what their next move is. Newcastle would then pull off a 2-0 victory against Athletic Club, and Athletic Club are just getting clubbed around. You know, I haven't seen a performance where Athletic Club have done anything of use. Genuinely, it's been a misery. A misery. Every single game is a misery. The first goal in the game came in the 11th minute via a free kick into the box, and it was Dan Burn with one of the greatest headers I've ever seen in my life. Like genuinely, man got top spin, bend it like Beckham, spin curve abilities like you're playing Score Hero. You know, and you get the line and you just curve it so it makes a swerve on the ball. Dan Burn did that with his head in game, real life, Champions League, and it was a banging goal. And then in the 49th minute, it was another headed finish by Joe Linton. You know, Newcastle hit Athletic Club with Brexit football. They said, you know what, 2 headers, bing, bang, bosh, you're done. See you later, 2-0. Benfica would lose 1-0 to Bayer Leverkusen, and if I'm being honest, I don't really want to talk about it. I actually don't want to talk about Benfica. With Mourinho, it's not really good, is it? It's not really good. Schick would get the only goal in the game, helping Leverkusen win 1-0. And the reason I'm so frustrated is because Benfica, we had 21 shots. 21 shots. Yeah? 3 big chances created. Everything was going well. This has happened multiple times this season. Atalanta would win 1-0 against Marseille via a late finish in the game, but the most dramatic thing that happened in the game was when the manager of Atalanta, I forgot his name, like Juric or something, pulled off Lookman, and then as Lookman's coming off, he just gave him a slap or just grabbed him. I think he grabbed him. I don't know if he slapped him, but he grabbed him. Imagine he slapped Lookman. He grabs Lookman, and then like they just get into a little bit of back and forth, and it was just a bit awkward, if I'm being honest. Why does every Atalanta manager just disrespect Ademola Lookman? This is a situation that is getting out of hand, and I'm gonna actually write a script after this about it because I think it's weird, but also it's an opportunity because Ademola Lookman could do so much better than playing for Atalanta. Not only could he play for a better team in Italy, but he could just play for a better team in general. Now we head over into the Tuesday games, and before we get into it, I actually need a drink, some water. Now let's finally head over into the Tuesday games, which saw titanic clashes. Let's be honest, a lot of people were watching the Liverpool versus Real Madrid game, but there was two big games. You know, I don't know who is putting these games on the same day, at the same time. Whoever did that, you're a war criminal. Like, you actually need to just fix up your life. Do you think I have the Wi-Fi capabilities to watch two football matches at the same time? No. With the dodgy streams, there's no way. I can hardly even watch one stream without it being in 360p quality. Now, this game at Anfield saw Liverpool absolutely dominate Real Madrid. Liverpool were outstanding. They were doing every single thing right, but the only thing that was not right for them is the mental state of Courtois. Because for some reason, this guy gets possessed, and he just takes up the entire goal every single time Real Madrid play Liverpool. Like it's back in the Champions League final that time where he had 20 billion saves. This game, it was just like that, with the only goal coming in the 61st minute via McAllister. And McAllister, of all people, an Argentinian smurf, no, Messi, I'm not talking about you. An Argentinian smurf scored a header. And it was a beautiful header to say the least. But the amount of opportunities that Liverpool had was unheard of. They had some sort of personal vendetta going into this game. And of course, it probably had to do with Trent Alexander-Arnold obviously making a move to Real Madrid over in the summer. A boyhood hero for Liverpool. And someone that just gets completely disrespected for no real reason. I know that people are angry that he learned Spanish and things like that. But it's his choice. I don't really care. You know, Trent is a legend for Liverpool. The amount of moments that he's brought this club is just incredible. And of course, it was weird because his right back kind of replacement, I guess, or the one that came through after him, Connor Bradley, put on a 10 out of 10 show. He was going 10 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 against Courtois because Bradley was the best player on the pitch for Liverpool, along with probably Szoboszlai, and Courtois was just stopping everything. Connor Bradley was looking at Vinicius Jr. like a piece of meat every time Vinicius Jr. tried to pull off a little trick or flick. You know, he's doing little weird tricks and body feints, and Bradley's just looking at him like, come on, bro. Szoboszlai was good. Wirtz was also quite good in this game, despite not having a goal, contribution. But if I'm being honest, I watched the game. You see moments where Wirtz was in the transition, held onto the ball, retained it against like 3 Real Madrid midfielders, and he's kept the ball and he's passed it along. I think the likes of Salah could have played a lot better, especially in the final third, looking up and passing to his teammates, and also Ekitike didn't have the best of games. But again, this was just a clash of Galacticos because Real Madrid, the likes of Mbappe was on the pitch, Bellingham was on the pitch, Salah was on the pitch for Liverpool. Imagine if Isak was playing in this game, he would have had a stinker as well, guaranteed. And let's just move on to an even bigger game that involved PSG and Bayern Munich. Bro, PSG would lose 2-1 to Bayern Munich at home in a game that involved two sides that are on tip-top form. These are two giants in the football verse right now. You know, two heroes that are pioneering the savior of football. You know, each of these sides have brilliant players that are, going against the grain and showing us that football can still be entertaining. And it only took 4 minutes for this game to get cracking, with Luis Diaz putting Bayern Munich up, with a first shot being saved and Luis Diaz on the follow-up putting the ball into the net. And even though Bayern Munich would score early, again, there would be opportunities with Bayern Munich putting on the pressure. And by the 45th minute, it would be that pressure that PSG would succumb to because Marquinhos would make a mistake, not seeing that he was getting pressed in a different direction. Luis Diaz would nab the ball for him, drive into the box and finish low. And then just before half-time, Luis Diaz would make a challenge on Hakimi that would be given via a VAR decision a red card. And I actually think this was a yellow. Despite Hakimi actually getting injured, I don't think this was completely his fault. And the studs went up. It was just like his leg got caught in between Luis Diaz. And this decision, in my opinion anyway, ruined the tempo of the game. It just destroyed it, because in that second half, PSG were given opportunities that Bayern Munich would have let them have if their main squad was on the pitch, if they had the same amount of players, because now they had a bit more space, they had an extra man, and eventually in the 74th minute, João Neves would get a goal via a little bit of an acrobatic finish, and I'm thinking, nah, PSG can't scam this victory. They can't pull this back. And they actually didn't. Bayern Munich held their own. And a big shout out has to go to Upamecano, who had the entire PSG back line in his pocket at times. He is a guy that I have criticised publicly, and a lot of people have criticised over the years, especially since his move to Bayern Munich. In a pairing with Kim Min-jae, he was seen as the guy that was making a lot of the mistakes. But this year, in particular, he silenced every single doubt. He has silenced the footballing world. And he's coming to fruition. This is a guy that we used to see at Leipzig in a back line with the likes of Konate and Mukiele. We knew that they would be good in the future. We knew that these were the guys. This was the next generation of French defenders. And he's put himself right up there as one of the best centre-backs in football right now, with a performance like this, but also the performances that we've seen from the start of the season at Bayern Munich. But yeah, that second half was all PSG, getting like 71% possession and 25 shots. But yet, Bayern Munich held their own. They really showed that even when hope is lost, they still have defensive solidarity and, you know, confidence in themselves that they can retain a scoreline. Now, of course, we've handled the big games, so we got to whiz through the rest of these because this video is going to be way too long. Tottenham won 4-0 against Copenhagen, and I think the only real highlight that we got to talk about is Van der Ven's goal. Absolutely incredible goal. Man just turned into Heung-min Son, actually. Did a similar run to Son versus Burnley and ran through the entire Copenhagen lineup, like just with ease as well, like a burst of pace. And this performance was a big one from Tottenham. The likes of Odegaard getting a goal, Paulinho, with Romero being involved in the build-up to Paulinho's goal, which again was just a bit wild. And despite Johnson getting a red card in the 55th minute, they were able to step up the gas and keep applying pressure to a Copenhagen side that were looking for something but couldn't find anything. And from one side of North London, we go to another side, with Arsenal going over to Slavia Prague and winning 3-0. A 3-0 performance that's become somewhat of a standard for Arsenal fans. Saka would score via a penalty in the 32nd minute, but it was Mikel Merino that really stole the limelight, getting a goal in the 46th minute and then in the 66th minute too. Two beautiful goals that are putting question marks into everyone's head. Do Arsenal, or did Arsenal, ever really need a striker? I don't really know. And it's not like Slavia were terrible. For the first 20 minutes, before the Saka penalty, Slavia could have taken the lead multiple times. And they just didn't, because they don't have the star quality on the pitch to put the ball in the back of the net in clinical fashion. And Arsenal's defensive numbers are genuinely getting silly now. It's become a problem for the entirety of football. And there's a game between Bayern Munich and Arsenal that is coming up over the horizon that everyone's eyes should be on. Will Arsenal concede, and will Bayern Munich score? Those are two things that we need to find out. Atletico Madrid would win 3-1 against USG in a game that saw the likes of Julian Alvarez. Let's talk about the first goal in the game, because Julian Alvarez receives the ball and chips the ball up and volleys it into the back of the net for the first goal in the game. This happened in the 39th minute, and as soon as I saw this finish, I just thought of a goal that Adebayor scored for Arsenal. I think it was against Tottenham. If the editor can find the clip or find some sort of footage of Adebayor scoring a goal where he receives the ball and the ball, he flicks it up in the air and volleys it. It's an amazing finish, and it just made me think of this Julian Alvarez finish, because Alvarez has a bag so deep when it comes to finishes. Free kicks, penalties, stuff like this where he's flicking it up, volleys, dribbling, marauding runs. This guy is elite. I would love to see him at any other club. But Atletico Madrid, just imagine him at Barcelona. Oh my days, they are missing out. They need someone like this. Gallagher would score in the 71st minute, then Julian St. Gilloise, centre-back Sykes would score. Header, yes, the lanky centre-back. Yeah. Then he would get caught out on the other side and then help his own side concede straight away. Where it was 16 minutes later, Llorente would capitalize on a mistake by Sykes at the back and then finish the ball into the back of the net, making it 3-1. Now let's go to Turin, where Juventus once again drew. When does this side win? They just draw every game. Please look at their Champions League record in this competition, in the league phase. There's been 4 game weeks now. I've commentated all of them. They just draw all the time. And again, it was a draw in this game, with Sporting CP scoring a brilliant goal. The first goal in the game, just a bit of FIFA play. It was, when you press L1 and press pass? So, you pass and then the player moves when when you pass. They did that in this game. With Araujo finishing off this move beautifully, putting it into the back of the net where we hit the post, then went into the back of the net, and it's 1-0 to Sporting. But then thankfully, in the 34th minute, Vlahovic wants to do Vlahovic things and finally score. And he's like, yeah, let's go. Let's bring this game back. Let's win. But then he just misses every single opportunity. After that, he takes random shots when he could have passed the ball, and Juventus draw the game. Then we had a bunch of games that I don't care about. Olympiacos would draw 1-1 to PSV, and I think this is only underwhelming because PSV's like previous result last match week, which was, I swear they battered Napoli. Then they come over to, I guess they came to Greece, and they just draw to Olympiacos, and they don't show any sort of signs that, I don't know, it's like a different team play today. And it's not like they didn't have shots. They had 10 in the game, 60% possession, but they just weren't feeling it. Monaco would win 1-0 against Bodo Glimt via a Balogun finish, an ex-Arsenal man. And Bodo were actually good in this game. Like, they showed promise, and there's been times throughout the match weeks that they've just showed signs that they're good. And of course they're good. They're in the Champions League. It's not a bum team. With 64% possession, 17 shots and 3 big chances in the game, they couldn't get one back against a Monaco side that, they're lucky to come out with that result. And finally, Napoli would draw 0-0 versus Frankfurt, and they needed a result, and they didn't get it. So, I don't even know. I don't know what to say about this game. Like, it was boring. Like, I also don't know what my opinion is on McTominay anymore. Because in games like this, he had like 2 big chances in the second half. And just, no, there was nothing there. And now finally, let's quickly look at the table. If I'm being honest, the best teams in this competition right now are the likes of City, Bayern, Arsenal, Inter, Liverpool, and Real. And of course, Liverpool aren't up there yet, but their performance against Real just made it seem like they could take Real's place. And honestly, looking at this table doesn't really do much because, like, some of the stuff that this guy says is actually is mind degrading. Is eroding my brain. Like, I don't actually know if this guy is serious or not. Because
fucking shit. See, no.
I guess we're not all like different perspectives on different leagues. So I'd say this right. And also taking part in the World Cup next year. Definitely going to be involved with the Portuguese squad. And I don't think they can, because if they do, I'll be very surprised. I'm very happy, but I don't think it's them. But
What the fuck, Kobe?
it's a right good always been around, and whatever he's done at his back, slowly over the years, as I've just gone on the wise people, some of the stuff that he says, some of the stuff he does, is just very aligned with what I believe, especially what they think of the concept. So I just want to address this one. What do you guys think? Do you guys think Ronaldo's lost the ball? And then roll a look. This is the video. This time and time again. Guys, so video is over there, quick vanish. But yeah, I don't know. It's been ongoing for a while. And I think I've decided to do this video now because we recently had another incident with another Atalanta manager where Ivan Juric, the Atalanta coach, former coach of like Southampton, started grabbing up and looking at him whilst he was getting something.
Bruh.
Wait, about getting something. He was supposed to be very bad. They could start saying stuff like that. They can have the right to. But the last thing you should do is on that on the play, especially if you're seen as someone that is respected. This is not the likes of Arsene Wenger, you know, putting his arm around the player when he's coming to the pitch. This guy is from the long, and he's not a legacy manager. He would make a move to Everton in January 2017, where we saw some signs of greatness. With a statement of intent against Manchester City, then a stint at RB Leipzig. And during that stint at RB Leipzig, he would score 7 goals and get 4 assists, all in the 2017/18 season, around 28 appearances, showcasing his ability to adapt to different leagues. Then he would experience mixed fortune, playing at the likes of Fulham and Leicester. And I think everyone would know that Fulham, like the last